Hi, this is Marty Connell from Rolling Dice and Taking Names, and I'm introducing a brand new segment that I'm calling News and Views. What I'm going to be doing is sharing some news from our industry, the gaming industry, and sharing those with you and then giving my views on those. But it won't just be what's coming out this week or the latest releases or what's new on Kickstarter, however it might be, just cause if I'm interested in it, I may be sharing it. But it's going to be other things that are happening in industry. How is the industry doing? How is it growing? Maybe some financial reports from some companies as they report them to the public. And then I'll be sharing my thoughts on those. But I've also found gamers enjoy topics from other pop culture mediums such as comics and TV shows and movies. So I may be talking about some of those too. And with that, let's get rolling. The first story I want to talk about happens to be a Kickstarter, though it won't always be. And that is a big Kickstarter that's going on right now from Restoration Games called Fireball Island. This is a game that is being re-released from that company that came out originally in the 80s. Now, if you don't know about Restoration Games, what they'd like to do is take older games, vintage games, nostalgic games, and redo them up to today's gaming standards and release them to the public for us to enjoy. And that's what they've done with this once was a roll and move game and now has a little bit more strategy involved to it and is currently on Kickstarter. But it got me thinking about how popular that game has become and how big it is on Kickstarter. It's just the fact that there's this nostalgia factor built into it. And it seems that nowadays nostalgia is a big moneymaker. There are a lot of things that came out in the 80s and 90s and that now we're now seeing again, like remakes of Jurassic Park turning into Jurassic World and Ghostbusters coming out with a new version and Transformer movies, and shoot, just announced on YouTube Red how Cobra Kai is going to be a new television show based on the Karate Kid using those couple same actors that were from that movie. I think one reason is because nostalgia is a big money maker right now. All those kids that grew up in the 80s and 90s now have the money to spend on items and t-shirts and different memorabilia and go see movies and subscribe to these shows online now to watch them again. It just brings back their childhood. But what's interesting is it's not just the generation that lived during this time that's interested in it. Even kids that weren't around are interested in it. Prime example, my kids love video games. They have all the latest consoles and everything, but what they've gotten into are retro video games. In fact, they've actually pooled their money together and gone to Goodwill and places that sell old video games and old consoles and have bought an old GameCube and a PlayStation 2, bought a couple CRTs, and have set up a room downstairs to play the games. And now they love going to stores that sell these old games, so they're more into buying these old CDs and old cartridges to play on those systems than they are actually current games. It's just nostalgia is in. Look at all the t-shirts that you'll find now with old cartoon logos or video game logos that you'll see in big ticket stores or big box stores such as Target. We have a local one here called Belk that is just now carrying a whole line of t-shirts based on nostalgia. Nostalgia is just where the money is at right now because maybe it reminds us of our youth, or why the kids today enjoy it so much. Maybe it's just because they're discovering something new. Speaking of nostalgia, I'm sure that a lot of you have heard the toy megastore Toys R Us is now going out of business. They're closing up all their stores, having a big sale, and they're going to be gone. And as a person who grew up going to Toys R Us and taking their own children to Toys R Us, it's actually kind of sad to see that happen. But it looks like there may be a resurgence of another toy company that disappeared about 10 years ago, KB Toys. Toys R Us purchased KB Toys in 2008 along with their trademark and then bought them and they were gone. Strategic Marks, a company in 2016, bought that trademark back, and they have just announced that they're going to try and open 1,000 pop-up stores across the country to sell toys this holiday season. Now, I haven't seen a lot of details on this, but I assume there's going to be something like where they're going to maybe rent out a small space and open up a store just to be used during the holiday seasons, much like a company around here called Spirit Halloween does during Halloween, where they'll set up shop in a store for like 2 months and then they're gone. So I'm really curious to see if this works. I mean, obviously the holiday season is the biggest time to sell toys. And I guess if KB Toys does their homework and could figure out what's going to be the hottest toys this season, open up these places and make sure that they're stocked really well, then they might do good. But Regardless, I'm still going to miss Toys R Us because I did grow up with Toys R Us kid, and Jeffrey did turn that frown upside down for me many times, and also my kids. So my question to you is, do you have stories of going to Toys R Us when you were growing up or taking your kids to it? Let me know in the comments. Have you ever wanted to open your own local game store? If so, you might want to keep your eye out for a book that's coming out May 1st called A Friendly Local Game Store, A 5-Year Path to Middle Class Income. In this book by Gary Ray, he's going to give you tips on how to open a store and run the business such that in 5 years you can consider yourself in middle class income. Well, the first question that came to mind after reading that title is, what is middle class income? So I decided to do some research and looked up the U.S. Census Bureau's median income for 2017, which was $59,000. Pew Research says that middle class income is anywhere from 67% of that median income up to 200%. So that means that's a range from $39,000 to $118,000, which is a pretty broad range, and that's nationwide because in some states, like California, it's a lot more expensive to live there than say it is going to be in my state of North Carolina. So even middle class between states can change. Regardless, if you want to have a comfortable living, this book is supposed to give you steps on how to achieve that. I'm curious to see what this book says about competing with online game stores. Sure, you've got the miniature markets and cool stuff Inc., but you also got Amazon that you got to be dealing with. We just talked about Toys R Us that just shut its doors. One of the biggest toy stores of all time could not compete against online stores such as Amazon and even Walmart online. So how can a friendly local game store, a brick and mortar store selling games, compete with all those other online services that can provide a product at a cheaper cost? I'm hoping that the book is going to suggest building a community. You've got to get people to come into your store, not just for buying a game, but to hang out. You've got to create events around games or miniatures or RPGs where people come to the store and sit there and hang out. And if they hang out, they're more than likely going to buy a product from you. So if you're thinking of opening up a game store, you might want to check out this book that's coming out on Amazon on May 1st. And if you have a dream of opening a game store, why don't you let me know in the comments? I'm curious to see how many of you are wanting to do something like that. At the end of each of these episodes, I want to share an interesting fact that you can talk with your friends about around the game table or with your family around the dinner table. Here's our fact for this episode. Cereal icon Captain Crunch's real name is Horatio Magellan Crunch. That'll be useful to you sometime, I'm sure. Hey, look, if you like this video, please subscribe and make sure to click on that little bell icon. And if you want to go listen to our podcast, you can check the links below. In fact, when I mentioned Fireball Island, we actually had the designers Rob Davio and the head of Restoration Games, Justin Jacobson, on our last episode 141. So go check that out and find out more about their Kickstarter at Fireball Island. So until next time, that's my take. Thanks, y'all.